everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Somebody mentioned to me that the most precious commodity we have, and most particularly at this time of year, is time. So I want you to know how much we appreciate your time and coming tonight, but more so the time and the commitment that you're making to the city of Highland Park. I started my service as a member of the Environmental Commission and then joined the Plan Commission and did that for 3 years. And it really was a fun thing to do. It was a lot of time. There were other things that I wasn't doing while I was sitting up there making those decisions, but I felt that I was having some say and some impact on a community that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to all of you because you all said yes. So thank you so much for your interest. Steve is a great lecturer. He teaches at Northwestern Law, so you should be ready for your bar exam by the end of tonight. And again, I just wanted to thank you. If you have any questions, if there are any things coming up on your commissions, because you're recommending bodies to the council, don't hesitate to email me and the members of the council to share your thoughts. When decisions come up from your groups, we see the minutes from your meetings. Some of you know this because you've already served. But we are really interested in your position on whatever it is that you're looking at. So again, I just wanted to say thanks and see you soon.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. The mayor has been trained. Actually, she sat through it when she was a commissioner, and so and is very familiar with these regulations. My name is Steve Elrod. I am the corporation counsel for the city. I have been in this position for going on 11 years, and it's my pleasure to do this. It's very neat that the city actually requires this. Neat from a couple of perspectives, not because it adds to my billable hours, but because for you and for the city, it allows the commission members to be trained and to learn about all aspects of the city. And we are going to cover a lot of information tonight. A lot of municipal law, a lot of historical information about the city, a lot of information about your obligations and your responsibilities, what's expected of you from a general sense, not your substantive areas, and what the city rules and regulations are concerning ethics, concerning gift ban, concerning open meetings, concerning Freedom of Information Act, a lot of interesting, well, I think interesting information that you may get caught up in and unwittingly or inadvertently be in violation of the law. We don't want that to happen. Highland Park is one of the, I represent a number of different municipalities up and down the North Shore. Highland Park is the only one of our clients that actually requires this or has this kind of training. So it's good. Be proud of it. I'm incidentally also a resident of Highland Park, so I'm glad that my commissioners are being trained in the law of Highland Park. So let me start. You all have a book, and we're just going to go through. I'm actually going to get a little more comfortable. We're taping this. So I'm going to be making meaningful glances to our television audience so that when a new commissioner comes on, they will be able to get the training without my having to come and repeat. It's the way they cut down on billable hours in Highland Park. I won't have to repeat this every time. Too many billable hour jokes, right? Okay. Sorry, Rob. Because we're being taped and because there is a television audience out there, it may be difficult to have a lot of interaction, but I want to encourage interaction. So if there is a question, and there will be an interactive part of this coming up, if there are questions, just let me know. I'll repeat the question to get on the tape. We're faced this way because this is how the city sets up its podium, but it also works because there will be PowerPoint presentation. So moving on. The training program is designed to do all of the things that are up there, including some of the ones I mentioned to you, and also most important to clarify your roles and responsibilities as a commission member. We're starting with the mission statement of the City of Highland Park. This was actually every word very carefully debated and deliberated. The mission of the city is to provide excellent services to all citizens of and visitors to Highland Park with the highest degree of fairness and equity. You, as representatives of the city, will be upholding this mission. This will be your mission. City of Highland Park municipal government is committed to an organizational vision which, 1, includes the highest level of public safety and security, 2, values diversity and compassion, 3, pursues opportunity for intergovernmental cooperation, and 4, strives to be efficient, cost-effective, and customer satisfaction-oriented in the delivery of all government services. That's your mission. That's our mission in providing and in making decisions and in doing everything that you do. This is just a structure of the Highland Park form of government. At the very top, of course, are the citizens of Highland Park. They elect their direct nexus or their direct privity is to the mayor and the city council, and then the mayor and city council have 4 prongs underneath it. The city manager, because we operate in the managerial form of government, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The corporation council, which is I'm a direct appointment to the city council, not to the city manager, unlike every other department head in the city. The city treasurer, and then you, the boards and commissions that are appointed and report directly to the city council. There are 2 different types of commissions. There are regulatory commissions and policy commissions. Regulatory on this page, policy on this page. Policy commissions are those that simply serve as advisors to the city council on new and existing policy. These are some of them that are listed here. Regulatory commissions, on the other hand, actually take final action. Some of them final action that's not even reviewed by the city council, such as the zoning board of appeals. Matters that the zoning board, is anyone here from the zoning board? The zoning board is going to hear matters that, if challenged, will go directly to the Lake County Circuit Court. Most other commissions either don't make binding decisions, or the decisions that they do make are recommendatory decisions that are referred up to the city council and ultimately considered by the city council. Just because you're merely a recommending body doesn't mean that you're not vulnerable to a lawsuit. We have, unfortunately, several lawsuits, and that's why we're talking today. And we'll talk a little bit about the indemnification that the city provides you and how to avoid it. Let's take a little step back. As Mayor Rodering indicated, I teach municipal law at Northwestern Law School, so I don't want to get this too legal-oriented, but I do want to give you a little bit of a 101 on municipal law, and talk a little bit about how Highland Park came to be, to its form of government, and it's going to help you understand where you all fit in to the general form of government. And start way at the top, in the federalism structure of government. Under the Constitution, all power that isn't expressly granted in the Constitution is reserved to the states. That's the 10th Amendment. And then the states determine how to govern within each state. In Illinois, the local governments are basically creatures of the state. The state, in its infinite wisdom, has created local governments. They've created various forms of local governments. They've created specifically counties, townships, school districts, municipalities, and special districts. The municipality, that's where Highland Park is. Special districts are could be a library district, not so in Highland Park. I'll explain that in just a little bit. But the mosquito abatement district, the sanitary district, the North Shore sanitary district that we're all a part of, those are all special districts created. In Illinois, there are more local governments because of the special districts than any other state in the country, just an FYI. In fact, more than double the next state, which is Pennsylvania. We have, and there's a movement in Illinois to reduce the number of local governments. There's a long story as to why it got created in the first place, political reasons, and the more people that could get elected and control different sources of money. But we are who we are, and the various units of government are all separate. So a special district would be a park district. The park district of Highland Park is separate from the city of Highland Park. And that's a very important point. When the Park District had a little bit of a controversial issue about a year ago, people complained to the city of Highland Park. The city of Highland Park could do nothing about that. They are a completely separate, independent body. The library, on the other hand, is not. The library in Highland Park is a quasi-special district. It was actually created by the City of Highland Park. It does not have its own budget. The City of Highland Park does the budget, puts the library funding within its own budget. And while the library has some independent functions, the City of Highland Park could, through its home rule power, I'll explain that in just a moment, take away or add to the power of the library. Further, continuing on our little Illinois municipal law lesson, municipal authority for any of those units of government flows generally from the state. And until the advent of home rule in 1970, municipal authority had to be found in the state statutes. It was called Dillon's rule. If you were to tax, if you were to make any regulation, any license, there had to be some element, there had to be some authority provided for in the state laws. In 1970, that all changed in Illinois when home rule was created. The 1970 Constitution allowed municipalities, if they were 25,000 in population or more, or if not, by referendum, to become home rule. You've heard of home rule. Highland Park is home rule. What it means is a home rule unit can take any, it has any authority so long as it relates to its own government and affairs. It can't be extraterritorial. We can't do something that would affect or that's governed in Highwood unless the state specifically takes it away. And the state has the ability to take it away. If the City of Highland Park wanted to regulate handguns, the state of Illinois, now the United States Supreme Court, the state of Illinois can say, no, you can't regulate handguns, we want to. Or if the City of Highland Park wanted to ban smoking, as it did, the state of Illinois can say, no, the state is going to ban smoking. But the City of Highland Park, as a home rule unit, can come up with all sorts of rules and regulations on its own. It has greater taxing authority. It could adopt what's known as a home rule tax, which is a tax that Highland Park imposes on top of the sales tax for all sales in the state. It enables Highland Park to engage in certain intergovernmental agreements, certain creative agreements with auto dealers, certain creative agreements, and it doesn't have to find authority for it at all in state law. Now, I've taken about 5 weeks of my class at Northwestern and just broke it down to that. If you have any questions about that, I'll stop. Was that too confusing? Did I go too fast? It's not essential for what you're going to do, but I thought it just may be a little interesting. Good. From the nods of your heads, I think I'm so far so good. All right. Then just within governments, within local governments. You've heard of cities, you've heard of villages, and let me tell you, you may wonder what's the difference. Why is it the village of Northbrook, the city of Highland Park? And take those two, for example. There's absolutely zero difference. It's just a title. What instead is the difference is whether it's an aldermanic or trustee form, whether the members are elected at large, as they are in Highland Park. Every councilman and the mayor is elected by the entire community, or by wards or districts, as they are, for example, in Evanston and in Lake Forest. Lake Forest is broken into wards and districts. Highland Park and Northbrook, as two examples, or Highland Park and Glencoe, both are communities that operate with the elected officials elected at large. So one's a village, one's a city. It's completely irrelevant. The different forms of government within that are three. There's a commission form of government, and in that form, each member it's called a commission instead of a city council. There's typically 5 members, 4 and a mayor, and each commission member takes on a responsibility for a department. So Commissioner Jones is the head of police and fire. Commissioner Smith is the head of public works. And each commissioner is responsible for the day-to-day operations of a certain department of the government. The other form of government is a strong mayor. where the mayor is actually the chief executive officer and the chief operating officer of the town, like in Chicago. The mayor hires the police chief. The mayor hires the fire chief. The mayor appoints all of the superintendents. All employment responsibilities flow through the mayor. That's a strong mayor form of government. And that's that individual is elected. And then there's the managerial form. This is the form that we operate under. In a managerial form, you have an executive, a professional that is appointed by the elected officials, but that executive is a non-elected person, not a political figure, but a professional figure, and that person is the chief administrative officer. That person runs the day-to-day operations of the town. That person hires the police chief, the fire chief, the public works director. That person stays in City Hall. Typically, in a managerial form of government, the mayor doesn't even have an office in City Hall. Our mayor does. That's just custom and practice in Highland Park. But in most managerial forms of government, the mayor is more or less a part-time responsibility job. In this form of government, the mayor and council set the policy and set the budget, but it's up to the manager to implement it, and it's up to the manager to exercise it. So if you have a beef with a policeman, if you have a beef with the public works person, you should be complaining to the manager. Now, the manager is responsible to the mayor and city council, and all it takes is a vote of 4 of them, and we'll talk about later when we get to voting, to get rid of the manager. So ultimately the responsibility is up at the mayor and city council level. How did Highland Park come to be where it's at? Well, this is a little interesting and historical story. Back in 1869, Highland Park first formed a city charter. It did so when there was no authority under Illinois law. Illinois law creating forms of government didn't come into effect until 1872. But Highland Park, within the area that we know of as Highland Park, it was loaded with saloons and bars, and the residents in the area had no way to regulate them or eliminate them as they wanted to do. So Highland Park formed a city charter, and within the city charter, it banned alcohol-serving taverns and bars. They all moved up to Highwood, and the rest is history. But Highland Park banned it by forming its city charter. When it formed the city charter, it had a mayor and it had wards. It had 2 wards, and 2 aldermen were elected from each ward. That was in 1869. In 1914, there was a referendum, and Highland Park switched to the commission form of government. The government I explained to you before. There was a mayor and 4 commissioners, and each commissioner took on a department in the city. And Highland Park operated under that form for quite some time, all the way to 1954, when there was a referendum, and Highland Park adopted the form of government that it currently has, the managerial form. That's when Highland Park first became a managerial form of government. In 1955, they simply, the then commission, because they were still called commissioners, just changed their name to city council. But they still had a mayor and 5 city councilmen. In 1970, by population, Highland Park became home rule. When the Illinois Constitution was approved in 1970, Highland Park had more than 25,000 people. It automatically became home rule. And there is, incidentally, a referendum method, by which you can eliminate home rule that hasn't been discussed in Illinois. Some towns have done it. It hasn't been discussed in Highland Park. Some towns in Illinois have done it. It's not been an issue yet in Highland Park. Other towns that have been less than 25,000 have attempted referendum to become home rule. Lake Bluff, Glencoe, for example. In 1973, the city council adopted, or the commission adopted, an ordinance to change its composition to be a mayor and 6 councilmen, and that happily is where we are today. Nothing's changed since 1973. So that's our history lesson. That's our Municipal Law 101. Any questions on that? Anybody? Sure.
What is the significance of home rule? What is that?
The significance of home rule, if a municipality is home rule, it has the ability to be creative, to adopt regulations, to adopt taxes, to adopt spending authority, so long as it pertains to its own government and affairs, unless the state takes it away. Before Home Rule, in order to do anything, there had to be a specific statute on the subject. Okay? So those communities that aren't Home Rule today, if they want to create a zoning district, if they want to regulate a building, if they want to do tax increment financing, they have to go to and make sure that there's a state statute that allows them, enables them to do it. Okay? Other questions? Sir, you understand this? Is this over your head, Mr. Mintz?
The presentation's wonderful.
Okay, good. Rob was my former law partner. If it doesn't, if it isn't clear to him, I'm in big trouble. But he's no longer. Okay, Highland Park. Back to Highland Park. We're talking now. This is a chart that the city manager prepared just to show you how the council manager form of government works in Highland Park. Clearly, the city manager is at the top, and you see the various levels as it goes down to and expands butter. If you want to be trained, come on in. These are just various governments with whom and with which the city of Highland Park has intergovernmental relationships. You'll see many of these when you get your tax bill because they're each separate taxing jurisdictions. And again, each one of them a separate unit of government with whom or against whom we have no authority. So if we don't like something that's going on in the Moraine Township or in the Park District or the College of Lake County, we can't, by going to the mayor and city council, say do something about it. They can exert their good offices, but they don't have direct authority. Yes? The library's on there because it's an entity with whom we have it's a quasi-institution. And they're actually, if you've been watching or reading the news, there has been some tension of late, or at least with the prior administration, between the library and the city about funding. And the city and the two have now entered into an agreement, or working toward an agreement, regarding funding for providing enough funds out of the city budget to cover the library, because the library doesn't have the ability to raise funds on its own. Good point. Very good observation. Okay, so now we're going from the broad down to specific. Now we're right into your roles and responsibilities. General principles of conduct. I didn't write these, but these are conduct rules that are that you're to adhere to, that you're expected to adhere to. So let's go down them. Treat all persons with respect. The good of the community is greater than the weight of any individual opinion or personal interest. Commissioners will represent their position with dignity and professionalism. For one of you, that may be a problem, but others, I'm sure you'll have no problem with that. A commission will address difficult policy and regulatory issues. A commission will build a capacity to work effectively together. The commission and staff will develop a productive working relationship. All quite straightforward, should be second nature. And knowing many of you, really that won't be a problem, and our commissions do operate very well, and I'm proud of them. Here's some expectations of commissioners, and this is in your book. There is a reference. I hope that these references are accurate. Call out if they're not, and we'll fix it. But it should be on page 8. It's expected that commissioners or a commissioner will thoroughly review all meeting packet materials, that a commissioner will attend all meetings in a punctual manner. We'll get to meeting attendance shortly. The commissioner will ask questions to fully understand the facts and opinions surrounding the matter at hand. The commissioner will participate in work groups and subcommittees as assigned and accept input from the public. Here is the attendance policy. This is important, so listen carefully to this one. Commissioner will be deemed to have resigned from the commission automatically if that commissioner fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings or fails to attend at least 51% of all meetings during any 1-year period. Now, there's ways around that, but that's the general rule. So be aware of that rule. If you have an excused absence from any meeting, it won't count as one of the 3, or it won't count toward the more than 51%. But the only entity that can give you that excused absence is the city council. And there's 2 ways you can get an excused absence. You can get a predetermined excused absence by, if you're, for example, going to be on vacation or away for an extended period of time, or have a job opportunity elsewhere for a 6-month period, and it's happened, you could request the city council to give you an advance determination of an absence, or if you have an unforeseen emergency or other issue or conflict, and it's for a valid reason, and I'm not the one to determine valid reason, the city council does, and I've seen them accept some and decline others. You can, within 10 days after the absence, request the city council to excuse it. If the city council excuses it, it wipes it away. You can do it after your first one, you could do it after your second one, and there are people that have waited till their third one and are truly on the brink and have come to the city council within 10 days and asked for excusal of that third one. It wipes it away, they're still on. There have been members, I will tell you this, since this rule has been adopted, that have waited until several months after their third absence, come to the city council, ask for an excusal of the absence. There's nothing the city council can do. They have been removed. They have been deemed to have automatically been terminated. Now, the mayor has the ability to reappoint that person, but it would have to go through a reappointment process. Any questions on that? Yes?
If you're traveling on business, can you kindly excuse by phone?
I'm going to get to that. The answer is yes, and we will get to that. And if you're present by conference call or phone, it won't be deemed to be an absence. We'll get there. Okay, a couple years ago, about 3 years ago, the city council changed the way that commissions are appointed and regulated. It used to be that commissions were appointed, and among themselves they appointed their own chair and vice chair. No longer the case. The mayor appoints the chair and the vice chair of every commission. The terms of commissioners are that chairs and vice chairs serve for one 2-year term. Commission members are limited to 2 consecutive 4-year terms. If someone, however, is appointed to fill a vacancy and it's less than 2 years into that term, they, I guess, technically can serve for 8 years and 11 months, give or take. But that's the only way you can exceed the 8 years. You could be, if you have a wait period, if you're off for a period, then you can be, for at least 2 years, then you could be reappointed to that same commission. That was a change that was enacted about 3 years ago. All commission, the numbers of all commission were changed so that there's 7 across the board, and the requirement to have training that we're doing right now was set up. Also, the code now provides that the mayor can remove any commissioner with or without cause at any time. So be prepared and be good. The roles of the chair and vice chair, they preside over the meetings. They can call special meetings. They're the ones that sign commission documents. And when I say they, it's the chair and the vice chair only in the absence of the chair. They work with the staff liaison to set the agenda. They focus the meeting toward building consensus. And there's an important one. They serve as the commission spokesperson. Unless the commission specifically designates somebody else to serve as its spokesperson, only the chair speaks for the commission. So if the commission has made a recommendation, for example, and that recommendation is up before the city council, and one of the commission members doesn't agree with it, that individual doesn't have the ability to represent the commission to the city council. Only the chair does. Now, that person happens to be a resident of Highland Park by necessity, and that person has the ability to address the city council, but not on behalf of the commission. Okay? And in the absence of the chair, the vice chair exercises all those roles. In most commissions, there is a city council liaison, one member of the city council that is sort of the bridge between the city council and the commission. That individual is not a voting member, can't make motions, and doesn't count toward a quorum to make sure that there's enough people present to have a meeting. And we'll get to Open Meetings Act shortly. The purpose of the liaison is to provide you with clarification of city policy, so that you don't go off in a direction knowing that the policymakers want you in a certain other direction. That the city council liaison shouldn't become an active member of the commission. That's not the point. You're the commissioners. The liaison should be there to assist you with policy guidance. If there's issues, you should talk with the mayor about it. The staff liaison, there is a member of the staff that the city manager has appointed to serve each commission. That person also is there to assist you, but should not become an active member of the commission. There are times where someone from my office will be at one of your commission meetings. We're there to serve you, to advise you of the law if there are legal issues, but not to engage as part of or vote as one of your commission members. Sometimes there are ex officio members that are appointed. I don't know if there are any currently, but sometimes there are from outside of the city or special presence from within the city, and sometimes there are student representatives. Neither of them count toward a quorum, and none of them are able to vote as part of a required vote. Indemnification. This is something you may want to take a look at. The city of Highland Park does have a policy whereby it indemnifies and holds harmless all the members of its commissions if they get sued, provided that they are acting in a way that could reasonably be construed to be within the exercise of their lawful duties. If you are taking a vote, and by virtue of your vote, either in favor or against a certain matter, you get sued, the city council will indemnify you, will defend you. If you are a member of a commission, and then you go to Michael's or Stash's and get into a brawl and throw tables and take other action that is not among the requirements that I read about earlier, that may not necessarily be, and you get sued for that, that may not necessarily be something that the city is going to provide you indemnification for. Yes?
Some years ago, around 2000, I was chairman of the then Traffic Commission, now Transportation Commission. And I'll never forget, the guy said in the back of the room, he had a proposal for a stop sign. And he said that if the commissioners don't approve it, he will sue each commissioner. And I mean, it just floored me.
It happens. It happens every day. And I'm dealing with it regularly. And in fact, we are dealing with a matter right now where each individual member of the Zoning Board of Appeals was sued by an individual who was turned down for a house variation in the south part of town. It happens. And people, there's a feeling out there that if people are sued individually, it may make you take different action. I hope that you don't take different action. You should act based on your convictions. You should act based on what the code provides. You should act based on your professionalism and what you were appointed for, and not by threat of a lawsuit. That's what we're here for, and we're here to make sure that you're protected. That's what this policy is here for. There are a couple other that you will want to look on page 16 if you at your convenience about how to resign, should you need to resign, and the information that you're required to release for emergency purposes. Okay, moving toward, yes.
Page 10.
Oh,
Our page is page 5.
okay.
Section 2, page 10.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Thanks for finding it, too. Okay. What is known as the sunshine laws. This is a beautiful view. This is not Catfish Lake, but it's a view of sunshine. Sunshine laws are the laws that have been created in Illinois, known as the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act. And believe it or not, they apply to you, and some in a very interesting way, which we'll get to. And this also is a very complicated subject area, but it's one that I think is important, so let's spend some time on. Freedom of Information Act is the act by which public records are made available to the public. The act changed significantly in January of 2010, broadened substantially, and you are seeing almost daily in the Tribune and the Sun-Times and any other media that you read or see exposés based on information that the media garnered through Freedom of Information. There are entities that are filing Freedom of Information Act requests regularly, not daily but hourly at municipalities. It's become a very big issue and substantial issue, and one that we need to be very careful about. It applies to all public bodies, and it applies to you, and it applies to anything that's a public record. But it has to be a record that exists. You can't, in a Freedom of Information Act request, require the municipality to create a record. For example, the Tribune can't say to the City of Highland Park, I would like the phone numbers of every member of every commission. Well, we may have that, but if we don't have that, if that hasn't been created, we don't have to go and create a document. The FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, is only for documents that already exist. And then it's only for public records. Now, key issue is, what is a public record? It's a material that's prepared for or used by or received by or in possession of the public body pertaining to the transaction of public business. So, if Nancy Rodering has a document on a city computer that is her laundry list or her children's school list, that may not necessarily be a public record because it doesn't pertain to the transaction of public business. Or if Mayor Nancy Rodering on her private computer or her private cell phone texted or wrote something, but it did relate to public business. It was a document about Central Avenue that she wrote to a constituent. That's where it gets kind of tricky. And it was pretty clear until 2 weeks ago when the Illinois Attorney General issued an opinion concerning the city of Champaign. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a deeply concerning opinion because it provides that public officials, you all, that the text messages and the email messages that you write that pertain to public business on your own private cell phones, Blackberries, or computers may be public records and therefore FOIA-able. Now, our firm has been analyzing this decision. We believe it's limited to its facts, and the facts are that several members of the City of Champaign City Council were texting to each other and to members in the audience during a Champaign City Council meeting. We believe that, and it was about public business, we believe that that case is limited to emails and texts on your personal computers if you do it during a public meeting, because that's when you are the public body. We've talked with the Attorney General. We've talked with her office. They're not as interested in limiting that opinion. They're interested in expanding that opinion. So our advice to all of our municipal clients is to be very careful. Be very careful what you do on your you all aren't issued public computers. The City Council each is issued a laptop through which they conduct public business. But be very careful about using your private cell phone or your BlackBerry or your computer to conduct public business unless you have some sort of facility for saving those records, because you're not allowed to destroy public records. So be careful. If you are transacting with staff, if you are sending an email to staff, you need not be concerned. All of emails that go to or from the City Hall or to or from a staff person with a City of Highland Park email domain are saved in accordance with the Illinois Public Records Act. It's the emails that you send to a constituent, it's the emails you send to each other that could be concerning. Question?
Got two questions.
Sure.
So if you choose to look at your meeting packet on a computer during a meeting and read it from your computer screen, but you're not doing any other, business on your computer during a meeting, would that make your
Well, first, not to worry about that, because your meeting package came from City Hall, so it's already a public record. You don't even have to worry about it. If we got a FOIA for that public record, we're not even going to talk to you. We're going to get it from City Hall.
And then in terms of
Second.
so an email between two commissioners, for
Yes.
example, regarding a matter that's up before the commission,
Yes.
your feeling is that that's not a matter of public record?
Well,
The state thinks it is?
Yes,
At this point?
yes. And now I'm going to tell you some additional concern, not dealing with with Freedom of Information at all, but with Open Meetings Act, as it concerns emails between commissioners. This is another concerning subject. We'll see when we get to the Open Meetings Act that a majority of a quorum of your commission that's talking together, when the act was first written, gathered together, can constitute an open meeting. So if you have a seven-member commission, a quorum is 4, a majority of a quorum is 3. So any 3 people that are gathered together for discussing the business of that commission could be an open meeting under the Open Meetings Act. The Attorney General, not only in Illinois but elsewhere, has said that emails, not necessarily one-way emails, but an email conversation or a chat room conversation or a Facebook wall conversation can constitute an open meeting if it's with more than a majority of a quorum of the commission. So I may have confused it more, but go on. Ask me questions.
I know that this came up with an issue with another governmental body in town because there were documents sent regarding an issue to personal emails of commissioners of that agency, and those were not provided when requested in a FOIA because they were sent to personal emails, but those are the emails that are given on the website to contact the commissioners of that governmental body.
Okay.
So
That may,
is there-
the law may have changed since Champaign, the Champaign case.
That was, a few months ago, so that may have been before, but the question is does the city have the capacity to give email addresses to people who are on commissions and then have those emails used for conducting business so that that record is kept, rather than using our, right now, I think we're all using our personal email.
But the answer is yes. Yeah. The city, does it have the capacity? Rob, go all the way down go down to the first floor. Somehow I knocked off the computer. Sorry. But the city does have the capacity, whether to give everybody a Highland Park domain email. But I don't know that the city is able to do, is willing to do it. They have one, and it's offered to city councilmen. But understand, at least from the perspective, and you know what? In light of this Champaign case, the city may reevaluate all of this. So it's a good question. Understand first, information that comes from the city to the commissioners is FOIA-able, unless it falls under one of the exemptions. If it's an attorney-client privilege or it dealt with some other information, it is subject to FOIA. It's the emails between commissioners and themselves, or commissioners and constituents that don't even come through City Hall, that's sort of in the gray area right now. And in light of all of this, in light of your concern that those could be FOIA-able, and how do we keep them, and how do we prevent, how do we keep them, maybe the city will have to start looking and reevaluating its system and maybe give people domain. We'll talk about that internally. Does that answer your question, though? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if I bumped into two or three of the other commissioners on the Transportation Commission at Starbucks, we have a conversation about the matter, stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
We would have to create a record of that conversation, and
Well, you've got all sorts of problems with that. So let's start with and get.
what I probably do is say,
Let's hone in on your example. You have a 7-member commission. So if 2 of you got together, no problem. 3 of you getting together, problem, because that is an open meeting, and you can't discuss traffic commission business. You can discuss. You can. For all 7 of you can get together and discuss the Cubs and the Sox, but you can't discuss traffic commission business.
the real answer is to say, let's not talk about it.
Right. Right. So I'm going to go through this without the benefit of the PowerPoint. It's great stuff that you're missing, but I get to see it. So let's talk about the Open Meetings Act, because that's really the next thing. It applies to all of you, all public bodies, and the question is, what makes an open meeting an open meeting? And it is, if I could just, I'm not even sure what I did. But we'll find out.
The camera looks like it's on. Did you pick power up?
That's off too?
I don't see, yeah, it's not, I don't see a red light.
Is there a power button down there?
Yeah, it's kind of some, maybe some of that.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't me at all.
Yeah.
That would be
I
good.
think I had a replayed.
Well, we'll keep going, because you'll be certified. She
I'm
coming?
trying to find her.
She's right downstairs.
No, she wasn't. I don't know who she is, but she wasn't right now.
Got it. Okay. So we're going to keep going. And I'm just going to work off the screen. A public meeting is, as I indicated, a gathering of a majority of the quorum for purposes of discussing public business. So, let's go to your Starbucks example. You can gather 2 or less. You could gather more than 2 so long as it's not for discussing public business. Very, very important distinction. And emails could be a problem, as I indicated. Emailing among each other with particularly replies to all. So if you're on a commission and you send an email one way, not a problem. Reply to all and going back and forth. How do you think you're going to vote on this? What should we do? Or even while you're up there, what are you thinking about this? And it's done a lot. Could be, most likely is, illegal under the Open Meetings Act. Yes?
Illegal because it's not accessible under FOIA. So if on my phone.
No, illegal because it's a public meeting and you haven't noticed it up as a public meeting.
Okay, so even if I kept my own file record on my computer, it's illegal.
Right. It's illegal, completely different act. We're now in the Open Meetings Act. If it's,
No need.
well, and just so, maybe I should have started with the whole premise behind this. The premise is sunshine. It is accessibility to the public. You should, hi, I did something.
That's okay.
Something, I think I may have kicked something down here,
Okay.
but I'm not sure what.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So, the whole point is for accessibility to the public. You are supposed to conduct, public bodies are supposed to conduct all of their business in public. The public is supposed to be able to hear and watch, not necessarily participate, I'll get to that, but they are entitled to hear and watch everything you do. So if you have a majority of a quorum and you want to discuss public business, you can't do it unless you notice up a public meeting. You have regular meetings And you can have special meetings. You can call a special meeting so long as you give 48 hours advance notice. If there's an emergency, and I don't know of a situation for a commission, that a commission would have an emergency, city council may, but if there is an emergency, you can do that too and give notice as soon as practicable. You have to have your meetings in a place that is accessible and in a place that is convenient and open to the public. That's very broadly stated. And there have been meetings, sometimes commissions want to go on tours, and that's allowed, but it would be a public meeting. We've had in other towns, Walmart or other big companies come in, and the commission wants to tour. The 7 of them want to go tour a neighboring, a Walmart in another community and get together on a bus. That would be a meeting. So we've had to notice it up. If a member of the public or the media wanted to come along, they'd have to be invited to it. When the mayor wanted the public to see and give a tour of the Highland Park Theater, that was noticed up as a public meeting, and the meeting took place at the Highland Park Theater. We have to comply with the law if it falls under the category of a public meeting. All right. Participating remotely is part of a public meeting. So the state of Illinois amended the Open Meetings Act to allow electronic participation in public meetings, but they did it, politics got the better of it, and they did it in the most narrow and unfriendly way possible. The state adopted but our firm has come up with a way around it. The state said, all right, we recognize that a lot of people should be able to participate by telephone, but we're going to adopt a lot of restrictions. First, we're going to require that a majority, or a quorum rather, must be present at the meeting site. So if you have a 7-member body, no more than 3 can participate by conference call at the same time. 4 have to be present. You have to make sure that the public can hear, so there has to be a speakerphone or some sort of speaker system, and the person on the other end has to be clearly identified by the members of the body that are present. Those are easy rules, not a problem. The state then said, but the only reasons you can participate by phone or remotely are if it's a personal injury or a disability, or if it's employment purposes for your own business or of the public body, or you have a family emergency. That's pretty limiting, in our opinion. So what we did, and what the City of Highland Park, in our recommendation, the City of Highland Park adopted a sort of a don't ask, don't tell type of program. Specifically stating, because it's important that if a meeting were to take place and someone on the other end fell into one of these categories, you didn't want the action taken at that meeting to be subject to challenge or subject to repeal because you didn't have a valid meeting. So the way that the policy works in Highland Park is the individual identifies himself, you follow all the original requirements, and that unless somebody makes a request or a challenge or a motion as to the reason of the party being on the conference call, the party need not state the reason. There will be a presumption that it's a valid reason. So we have a presumption in favor. It's a rebuttable presumption. That means that somebody can challenge it. But if the presumption is not challenged, then the meeting is considered valid and it can go forward. And anyone can challenge it, but that's how we've worked our way around that particular issue. Is that, yes?
Does that have to be challenged during the meeting?
Yes, only during the meeting.
Come back 2 weeks later.
The meeting is valid, and the actions taken at the meeting will be valid. Yes?
Steve?
Sure.
That there still has to be a live quorum at that meeting.
Yeah, that's correct.
So 3 people on a commission can be electronic, but 4 have to be.
4 have to be present at the meeting, where the meeting was noticed up originally. Correct. Okay? Yes?
So if I know the fellow commissioners on the phone skiing in Aspen, I shouldn't ask them how the snow is on the
unless you don't want him to be able to participate. And that's been done, and you know where he's voting on a certain issue, and you don't want that, then you have that ability. It's called it's parliamentary rules. No, I mean, you don't, if you don't say anything, and the meeting goes forward without a challenge, that meeting will be valid. But that's the law in which the state law that we're living under. Okay, any other questions on electronic meetings? So once you have an open meeting, you can close it. It could be closed to the public, or you can go into what's called executive session or closed session, but only for limited reasons. And many of them don't apply to you. So I don't know that you'll be doing this all that often. Some of them, some of your commissions do it, some do it regularly. Is anyone here for the Board of Fire and Police Commission? Because many of the deliberations do take place in closed. In order to go into closed session, there has to be a motion stated publicly, and there has to be a roll call vote. And the reasons are here. It's pending or imminent litigation. You see the council, city council go into closed session for this reason quite often. Personnel matters, collective bargaining. You see many of these don't necessarily apply to your matter. And then it also, sometimes the Plan Commission will go into closed session to discuss pending litigation. It's a stretch, but it could be if there's litigation that's threatened based on action that the Plan Commission may take. Any questions about Open Meetings Act, Robert's Rules? Moving along at a good pace. Then let's keep going. Voting. So I'm going into Robert's Rules and parliamentary procedure. Voting occurs only on motions that are properly made and second. Here's a general rule. If you make a motion, you should refrain from speaking against it, but you can vote against it. To get it on the table, to end the debate and get the matter on the table and be able to maybe move on to the next issue. But the rule is something that you are actually prohibited from voting against your own motion. You're not. The chairman cannot make a motion. The chairman entertains motions. The chairman cannot second a motion. The chairman entertains a second. So the chairman will say, is there anyone that would like to make a motion? Or if the chairman really wants to frame the motion, the chairman will say, I would like to entertain a motion to approve this matter and make a recommendation under the following grounds for the city council. And actually say it all. And then the person will say, some member of the body could simply say, so moved. And a seconder would say second. There are, in your materials, I've provided you with some typical motions. If somebody can help me with a page if you see it, that are, and giving you the proper framework or way to say a motion. Okay, that's for you to read at your leisure. Exciting stuff from General Roberts. The Prosser rule. All right, this is when somebody abstains or passes or says, I don't know, or I'd rather not say, I can't decide, when they're called upon to vote. Can't necessarily do that under Illinois law. In the case of Prosser versus Village of Fox Lake, the Illinois Supreme Court said every vote must have a legal significance. And to vote to abstain the court said, is going to be deemed to be a vote with the majority. So, if you're on a 7-member commission and 4 people vote aye, 1 person votes no, and 2 people vote pass or vote abstain, those 2 votes get counted with the 4, and it's recorded as a 6-to-1 vote in favor. Better example. Let's say it's 3-to-2, and 2 people vote pass. Those 2 passes will get counted with the 3, and it'll become a 5-to-3 vote. So even though you think you may need 4 votes, a majority of your group, you'll get it with voting abstain or pass. There's an exception if the statute requires a supermajority vote, and I'm not sure in any of our commissions that supermajority votes are required. I can't think of an instance, and I would advise you, or our firm would advise you if there were to be. And there are certain state statutes that impose a supermajority requirement on the city council, and in those instances, an abstain vote is a no. That means that it's not counted with the majority. It means it's I vote no against the motion. What happens when you just change your mind under Roberts? You know, the clerk is calling the roll of your commission, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Smith, aye, and then you think, oh, shoot, I didn't want to vote that way. I meant to say nay. Well, you had the ability to change your mind until the chairman announces the vote. Once the chairman announces the vote and says motion passes, motion fails, you can't change your mind anymore unless you go through what is called a motion to reconsider. That's kind of a tough process, but a motion to reconsider is something where you take a matter, let's say you voted to recommend approval of the Crossroads Shopping Center, and the vote was 4 in favor, 3 against. And somebody in favor says, you know what, I really didn't want to vote that way. As long as you're in the majority, only somebody in the majority can make a motion to reconsider and get that matter back on the table for discussion. Once that person in the majority makes the motion, anyone can second it, and then the matter's back on for discussion. Then you can have a whole nother vote on it. Questions about that? Went through that one kind of quickly. Here's one that I'm trying little by little to change the world on. Something that's used all too often, or you move to table something. You're tired of discussing it, you need more information, the petitioner isn't ready, the staff didn't do a good job, just don't understand it, it's getting late at night, and I move to table. Not the best way under Roberts to proceed. What you really mean to say is you move to postpone, not to table, because a motion to table it carries with it a certain type of significance. First of all, if it's seconded, it stops all debate. No one can talk after a motion to table. There is no debate, no discussion. You can't say, well, why are you tabling it, or should we table it to our next meeting? Should we do it to? You can't have that kind of discussion. You must immediately go to a vote on it. And you're really cutting. Now, if you're a real good parliamentarian, you may want to do that, but I don't think that that's what's generally intended. I think what you're more likely to want to do is to simply move to postpone the matter. And that's the proper way to simply put off a matter. If you move to postpone and it's seconded, you can have discussion on it. You can say, do we really want to postpone it? Do we want to send it to another commission? Do we want to do it after New Year's? Or you can have all that kind of discussion. Okay? All right. Next subject. Just a couple more. We okay? Want to take a break? Keep going? All right. We're good. We're going to finish right on time. Beware of the Prohibited Political Activities Act. This means you, officers, cannot perform a prohibited political activity during compensated time, even though you're not compensated. Compensated time means the time that you're spending on your commission. And when you're on the commission, you can't engage in these kind of political activities. You can't solicit political contributions. You can't circulate candidate petitions. You can't distribute political literature. Most important, the one that comes up all the time, you can't wear a political button or political apparel. That is when you are sitting on a commission or acting as a commissioner, not when you're at home preparing for your commission package, but when you're acting as a commissioner, you can't engage in that kind of political activity. When you're off the clock, all power to First Amendment, you're covered, you can do anything you want. Any questions about that one? I'll get a lot of questions on that usually. Or a lot of concern as it gets close to election time. Gift Ban Act. Beware of the Gift Ban Act. You are all prohibited from either soliciting or accepting a gift from a prohibited source. A prohibited source is someone that has got business before the city, that does business with the city, And this could be broadly construed to mean someone that's doing business with the zoning board and you're sitting on the Historic Preservation Commission. Doing business with the city is a prohibited source. You can't accept a gift. There are certain exceptions to that. You can accept a gift if it's an educational type of gift, if it's from a relative or friend, if it's food or drink up to $75 per day and not more than $100 per year from one source. Now, people are providing gifts with values in excess of $75 all the time. The way around it is, if you do receive a gift, you can donate, that's in excess of $75. If you donate the value in excess of $75 to a charity, any 501c3 charity, you are in compliance with the law. Okay? Sharing it won't get you around it. But getting it, but because that would, well, it could cut the value down to under 75, I suppose. Ethics, the ethics guidelines. Now, I'm going to go over these in a little bit of a different way. We're going to mix it up a little bit here. These are things that are that are of concern to you, and we found that the best way to do this is just to take various fact patterns and let me get through all of them, because one way or the other, I think I'll hit one of your fact patterns that you have in mind. So we're going to deal with this hypothetical. Mr. Gold, he's a resident of Highland Park, and he's currently serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay? He's an attorney, and he's got a law firm with offices in Highland Park. He's a member of the Third Church, and that's a church, a religious institution that's in Highland Park. Okay? Remember Mr. Gold. Mr. Silver is a resident of Highland Park, and he's a partner of Mr. Gold's. And Ms. Orange, she's a very prominent real estate developer with projects in several suburban communities, and she's a client of Mr. Gold's. Okay? First, Mr. Gold wants to represent Ms. Orange in her application for a zoning variation before the ZBA, before his own commission. Prohibited. That is not allowed under our ethic. And I'm going to go down these and tell you what you can think of what the answer is, but I'm going to tell you what our current ethics laws require and provide. Now, beware. The City Council has, in recent weeks, been considering changes to the ethics codes. If you've been reading the paper or following our meetings, they're considering changes. No change has occurred yet, and I'll tell you where some of the change may occur. Not that one. Mr. Gold wants to represent Ms. Orange for an application before the Plan Commission. He's on the ZBA. He wants to bring a matter before the Plan Commission. Right now, it's permitted so long as he tells the Plan Commission that he is a ZBA member. If he makes that representation, he's okay. First of all, the City Council can't represent somebody before any commission. They're prohibited from representing somebody anywhere. But other commissioners can currently represent a third party before another commission. That's one of the rules that's up for discussion. There's some thought that at least in zoning-related matters, there shouldn't be an ability to represent somebody before other commissions. Up for discussion now, but this is the rule today. Mr. Gold wants to is representing Ms. Orange in a matter that's pending, wants to represent Ms. Orange seeking a building permit from the city. So not before another commission, but going to the building department. This would be permitted, but if that building permit could somehow turn into something that would come before Mr. Gold's commission, he wouldn't be able to do it. But as long as it's a building permit matter, he can do it at the building department level. Next scenario. Mr. Gold is representing Ms. Orange on a matter that's pending in Deerfield, and it's completely unrelated to Highland Park. And Ms. Orange is now coming before Mr. Gold's commission, seeking a variation from the ZBA, but she's being represented by a different law firm. What does Mr. Gold do? He's got to disclose and recuse. And I'll go over in a little bit what recusal means and what you have to do if you're in a situation where you have to recuse yourself. But he has to do both. He doesn't have to resign from the commission. He just has to disclose and recuse. Next, Mr. Gold previously represented Ms. Orange, but he's not representing her anymore, and she's no longer a client of the firm, and she's now coming before the ZBA. In this instance, Mr. Gold does not have to recuse himself from the ZBA, but he has to disclose on the record that he had a prior relationship, not a nefarious relationship, but a prior relationship with Ms. Orange. Next scenario, Mr. Silver, who is Mr. Gold's law partner, you'll remember, wants to represent Ms. Orange before the ZBA. So now Mr. Gold's sitting up there as a member of the ZBA, his law partner's coming in representing Ms. Orange. Mr. Gold has to disclose the conflict and recuse himself. Doesn't have to resign. He can simply recuse himself, and again, I'll talk to you about what recusal means. Mr. Gold's law firm, remember, he has a law firm in town. That law firm he's a partner in is seeking a variation for his law firm building, but the law firm is being represented by somebody completely another law firm. And they're coming before the ZBA because there's a side yard encroachment. In that instance, Mr. Gold has to disclose his conflict and he has to recuse himself. Reason being, in this instance, his law firm, presumably, is a for-profit organization. We'll get to a different scenario where Mr. Gold's a member of a not-for-profit organization. But if he's a partner in a for-profit organization, he has to disclose, he has to recuse himself. May be different if he's just an associate and not sharing in the profits, but if he's a partner in it, he has to recuse. Gold Jr., Mr. Gold Jr., his son is seeking a variation from the zoning board. So your son's coming before your own commission. What do? You have to disclose and recuse. The ethics rules has a detailed definition of what constitutes a family member. Your third cousin twice removed can come before the commission. Your son going up or down in one step is a family member. You'll see it in the ethics guidelines. You'll recuse yourself only for that family member. What about your next door neighbor? Next door neighbor is seeking a zoning variation from the ZBA. What do? This is where it gets tricky. It's permitted. And let's talk about this for a second. Because people say, what, how can I possibly, it will look improper, the appearance of impropriety. Fact is, Highland Park's a small town, after all said and done, and everyone that sits on these commissions is a member of the town. I encourage every commission, I encourage all the members of the city council to participate wherever they possibly can. Recusal should only be a last resort. So if your next door neighbor, there is inevitably going to be a situation, folks, and I'm telling you this now, where a neighbor, a friend, in my next example, somebody that was in your wedding may be appearing before your commission. If you can't deal with that, if you don't think you can handle that, you should rethink being on a commission. There's going to be tough decisions you're going to make, and they're going to be about people you care about or know or see on the train or you've been in relationships with. If you are unable to render an opinion because you have such a close relationship, then perhaps you should recuse yourself because it's the appearance of impropriety or you're just unable to render a decision. But you should err on the side of participating. Mainly because once people start recusing themselves, we may not have a quorum. We may not be able to conduct the business of the town. So that's my little philosophy there and my admonition to you all. In this instance, the best man is seeking a variation absolutely should be permitted. Now, what if he's seeking a variation for his own house? In this instance, he's got to disclose that he's a member of the ZBA, but he can't do both. He can't vote on his own variation. But anybody should be able, we're all at one point or another going to have relief that's going to be needed. Maybe, and we're going to be seeking relief from commissions. Simply because you're a commissioner should not prohibit you from adding on to your house if you so desire, or seeking relief to add on. Here's the opposite example, the one we had earlier, where Gold's a member of a not-for-profit organization. He's just a member of the congregation. In this instance, he's got to disclose his conflict, but he doesn't have to recuse himself, unlike when he was a partner in the law firm. Now, if he's on the board of directors in a decision-making body of that same church, Here, he would have to disclose and recuse. Okay? Last one, he's now finished with his term. He's off the ZBA. He now wants to represent Ms. Orange before the ZBA. Should he be allowed to do that? The answer is yes, but this is one that the city is considering also. Congress, you know, and other entities have revolving door rules that prevent, for a certain period of time, you from appearing back before that commission or the entity that you served on for a certain period of time. That is not currently the case in Highland Park.
Non-compete clause?
It's like a non-compete clause, but it's just a non-appearance clause. Or it's called a revolving door policy, and I'm not exactly sure why, but in Congress they call it revolving door. You can't, I guess, leave and then come right back in the door and be on the other side, on the outside looking in. Maybe that's why it's a revolving door. Okay, if you need to recuse yourself under any of those situations, it's not enough to simply say, I recuse myself and stay seated on the podium, on the dais. You've got to come off the dais. It's not enough to stay in the room. You've got to leave the room. You've got to leave the corridor. You can't be visible to the members of the commission. Recusal means commission. Get out of here. Go to a different area of City Hall, or go, if it's nice outside, go out and, on the front lawn, but you're not to be in a place where you could influence. If you are and you're also not to talk with the commissioners about that subject matter while that matter is still pending. Okay? All right. Wrapping it up then, external communications. The city has, when you're on your commission, the city has an extensive media relations policy. It's in your materials for all elected officials and all staff. The city manager serves as the primary media relations officer. Appointed officials are not to be spokesperson without authorization. You don't have the ability to speak. So if you're on the Lakefront Commission and there's a big case that comes down about lakefront in Kenosha or lakefront issue or Lake Michigan issues, you can't speak on behalf of the Highland Park Lakefront Commission into Crane Chicago Business or the Chicago Tribune commenting on a certain case. You can't comment on a particularly significant matter that appeared before your case. That is prohibited. Now, you are a resident of Highland Park. You can comment on your own. You have your ability to comment on your own. Nothing's dealing with your ability to talk on behalf of yourself. But if you're stating that you're talking on behalf of the city, that's a problem. If you have a blog, if you have a Facebook page, if you have, and you should not be identifying yourself or making your comments appear as though you're speaking on behalf of the city. That's prohibited. Have your own opinions, fine. Make it clear that your opinions are not those of the city's. Did you have a question?
Should you specifically state, if you're in that case, that it's not the opinion of the city?
If you think it's going to be unclear, I mean, if you're talking about what's the latest wine of choice at Sunset, that's not necessarily going to be unclear to people. People aren't going to be confused about whether you're speaking with authority from the city. But if you're speaking on a matter that's within the domain of your commission, I think you should identify that these are my own views and not that of my commission's. Yeah.
That's really all, I write an opinion column in the patch about all sorts of things. And I'm on the transportation committee. Anytime I talk about any level of roads or bikes or anything, just it's important to put an asterisk, and at the bottom, just say.
Yeah, let's talk separately on that, because there could be some concerns. But I think generally that would be the way to address it. But I would like to talk, that's a very unique situation, because you write for a newspaper, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I think that could create issues. I'm talking more, we'll deal with your situation. Generally, though, for those of you that a lot of you have blogs or your own little college, or just write emails, you got to be careful on that one, because you can create liability for the city unwittingly and inadvertently, and you don't want to do that. Ex parte communications. You are discouraged from meeting with developers, contractors, petitioners that appear on official business before the city. The way that our policy reads, it says discouragement. You're not prohibited. You're not going to be thrown off. It is, but it is strongly discouraged. And if you do, and it's for your own good. You don't want to be in a position where there's somebody appearing before you and she says, well, Commissioner Jones told me you would vote yes, or Commissioner Jones told me I could do this, or told me you would be voting yes, so I already started construction. You don't ever want to be in that position. Again, you meet in public, you meet as a group, and you may be, your thoughts when you're with somebody may get changed when you hear how your fellow commissioners think. So it's in your best interest not to have these meetings, but if you must, and if it's necessary, the staff should go with you, or bring another member of your commission, at least have 2, not 3, because you'll be in an open meeting, but have 2, or have a member of the staff. That would be your best bet. Your commission meetings, you'll get packages that are assembled by the staff. They're posted and distributed at least 4 days. They're distributed electronically. You've been into your commissions a little bit, so you see how the electronic packages are delivered to you. There's a policy about commission dinners, that you can have those dinners prior, just as a convenience. And there's guidelines for them. Your staff liaison will tell you, and these differ from commission. The guidelines are the same, but the practice differs from commission to commission. And that's it. So, let me just say as a general overview and a closer, because we actually finished 3 minutes early. I want to say that my office is here for any questions that you have. That we've been asked by the city to be able to respond to issues and questions. It would be preferred if you sent your questions to your staff liaison and then up to us. But if a lot of times there are issues regarding recusal or conflicts that you may have, and it's not uncommon for a commissioner to give us a call to find it. We are the Corporation Council is the ultimate ethics officer in the city. Ultimate not meaning the best, but ultimate meaning the final authority. And little, no, I won't go there. For resolving ethics issues. And so if you do have a question, please give me a call. We're here to serve you. Hope you found this helpful. Open to any questions you may have. Thanks very much. And I'll stick around if you have any private questions. Rob, anything at your level? Too long.